welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing the book recommendations tag. It's a tag that Steph Ford made like quite a while ago. I think it was like over a year ago, and I just wanted to do it because I want to recommend some books, but I feel like I don't have a reason to recommend books. I'm doing the tag instead. I was gonna pick multiple books for each question, or just however many books I felt like I needed to put in, but I just picked one book per question because I didn't want to be here for like an hour talking about books, and no one also wants to see that. So I picked one for each. Obviously, when there's questions like your favorite book, I have multiple favorite books, but I just picked my top favorite. The first question is a book you tell people is your favorite, and I have multiple favorites, but if you were to ask me like my top favorite book ever, this is like the first one that comes to my head, and that is Carrie So Was Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this book over a year ago. I think it was last year in like March, and nothing has topped it since. Like, I'm obsessed. I usually only read romance. This is a fiction book. Like, there's no romance, no mystery. It's just, I love it. It's about a girl named Carrie So, and she is like the best tennis player in the world. I don't know if she's the best tennis player in the world, best female tennis player, but it doesn't matter. And she is retired, but she's about to see someone like break her world record, and she's like, that can't happen. So she comes out of retirement and asks her dad to like help train her to get her title back, or like make sure no one can beat it, I guess. It's like one of my 6-star reads. A book that is your guilty pleasure. Now this one, the way Steph described it, was a book that is one of your favorites, but you never admit that is one of your favorite books. And I was kind of like, I don't really know what to say for this one, but A Million Kisses in a Lifetime by Monica Murphy. Now I know a lot of people say they like this book, but I don't know, there's something about it that I cannot say one of my favorite books involves a lollipop. Like, I just can't. So this is one I just kind of keep to myself, but I did really love this book. I haven't continued the series or anything, and I know their book just came out, with like their child's book just came out, but I want to read. I have like a lot of the books. This series is so long. Like, I don't know why the series is as long as it is. I have 3 others in this series, but I just haven't picked them up yet. I don't know. But yeah, guilty pleasure book. A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime. A book that everyone loved but you didn't. I was gonna say Keeping 13 for this one, but I kind of softy enough that I didn't fully DNF it. Like, I'm like 200 pages in. I do think I will go back to that book in the future. So I said When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I feel like so many people love this book. I just didn't like it. It's basically about this girl, and she is like a famous pop star, and she wants to take a break. So she goes to Rome, Kentucky, and then her car breaks down in front of Noah's house, and then Noah lets him live with her, and it just was really slow paced for me. I like a lot of dialogue in books, and I felt like it was just not what I wanted. And I also didn't like how the sisters are such a big part of the book. Like, he has 3 sisters, and they're just always there, and I was like, can give me a break. Really didn't enjoy this book. A book you read the fastest. Now, I have a lot of books that I've read like in a day, under 24 hours, but I just picked my most like recent one. It wasn't on my Kindle because I didn't want to sit here and be like putting a picture on the screen, so I just picked ones that I had on my shelves. But Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, I read, I think I read it last week? I don't know when I read it. It was recently, and I finished it. I started it one day, finished it the next. I think that was a mixture of the writing being so easy to read, the storyline, the characters, and also it was hot outside, so I was outside reading the whole time. This is about Emmy and Luke. Emmy comes back to her small town for a little bit where she grew up, and she meets her best friend's brother again. They haven't seen each other in a while. Emmy had just recently been in a horse riding accident where she got thrown off the horse, and now she's too scared to get back on a horse, so Luke offers to help her ride a horse again. I don't know. Anyway, it was so good. I loved it. I want to continue the series. I think the 3rd one's coming out soon, but I need to read the 2nd one first. A book that deserves more hype. I feel like I had a really hard time picking out the book for this because I only read books that are like hyped. I feel like I don't really stray away. I don't really read books that I don't see hyped a lot. I feel like I just kind of stick to what Sarah, Destiny, Haley, Larry, Steph, whatever they recommend, and I read it. But this one, I feel like I love this book, and I've seen people talk about it and people read it, but I feel like no one talks about it enough, and that's The Love Wager by Len Painter. I was obsessed with this book. I've read this book maybe in a day, actually. I might have read it quicker than Done and Dusted, but I was obsessed. It's about these 2 characters, and they kind of set up a little love wager with each other. Whoever can find the first wins whatever the prize was. And the banter in this book, it was so fast paced. There was so much dialogue, which I loved, and I was obsessed. Read this book if you haven't already. A book that has become a movie or TV show. Obviously, I think recently there's so many books that are becoming movies or TV shows. One of the ones I'm really excited for is A Good Girl Get to Murder by Holly Jackson. I love Holly Jackson's books. I'm currently reading The Reappearance of Richard Price. I'm not very far in, but I did a reading vlog. It's coming out soon. Actually, the reading vlog is already up, so never mind. It's my 24-hour one. This one, I've seen, I don't know if it's like finished. I don't know if it's coming out soon. I don't know when it's coming out. I'm so excited. I don't know if it's a movie or a TV show. I just know it's becoming something and I'm so excited. I've seen the casting for it. I feel like the cast is picked perfectly for the book. This is about a girl and she is doing like a project for school where she thinks someone that was convicted of murder was wrongly convicted or like wrongly accused. So she kind of goes back into the case and ends up opening the case up, and it's so good. Well, that's also a trilogy. I didn't like the third one that much. Like I felt like it changed the whole point of the series, but it was still very good. A book you reread the most? I don't really reread books. I definitely want to reread some books this year, but I've only reread one book, and that was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Now, the only reason I reread this was because I left a bit of a gap between this one and the second one, and I felt like I kind of forgot what happened in the first one. And with these books, like, it's a lot of riddles and like puzzles you have to solve, and I felt like I couldn't remember, so I wanted to reread this one. How ugly are these covers? Stop. It's basically about a girl, her name's Avery, and she one day inherits like billions of dollars from this man that she's never met. And in order for her to claim the inheritance, she has to go live with his family that were just disinherited. It's also a trilogy. Once again, the third one wasn't my favourite. I feel like the third one was just a bit unnecessary. Like, I think the second one closed off the story how it should have. And then the third one was kind of ruined it for me, but the first two I really loved. A book from a genre you don't typically read. Now, this one, oh, you already saw. I only really read romance and then thrillers, kind of. I do read quite a few thrillers, and then fantasy. I've read 2 fantasy books ever. So this one is a fiction book. It's Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, I think is how you say it. I was so obsessed with this book. It's about a girl and she goes to like babysit for a family like down her street that just moved in. And she comes from a very like strict family. Very, I feel like, old fashioned, like very in the old times. This is set like, it's set in the 1970s, which is kind of olden times, but very strict rules, can't do certain things, and the family she goes babysit for are very the opposite. Like, they can do whatever they not do whatever they want, but they sing whatever they want. It doesn't matter if the house isn't clean, like stuff like that. And it was so good. Like, her learning stuff from their family and bringing it into her life, and then also bringing some of her rules and discipline into their family to be able to babysit their child. It was just so good and so fast, and it's less than 300 pages, so one of my faves. A book that deserves all the hype it gets. Now, this one, I had to pick this book because I feel like it's so hyped and so many people hate on it. Not so many people, but I've seen quite a lot of people hate on it, and I love it, and that is Things I Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I love this book. I love this trilogy. The second one, I think everyone knows, like, that one was a little bit worse than the other two. Even the third one a lot of people didn't like, but I love the first one and the third one. They're my favourite. This is about a girl named Naomi. She gets a call from her sister being like, I need your help in wherever they live. Where do they live again? Oh, Knockemout. That's literally the name of the series. And so Naomi, being the nice sister she is, shows up at this small town, and her sister disappears, steals her car, and leaves her baby there. Well, not baby, her child there for Naomi to look after. And no one likes her twin sister, but because they're twins and they look the same, everyone starts being really mean to Naomi and like telling her to get lost. And she's like, no, that's my twin sister. And then she meets Knox, who is very grumpy. It's Grumpy Sunshine, small town. There's a child in this book, but I liked her. I love to say I don't like children in books. Like, every book I've read with a child, I've liked the child, so I'm actually just a liar. But I was obsessed with the series, obsessed with this book. A book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. Part of Your Girl by Abby Jimenez, or just any Abby Jimenez book. Like, I'm so obsessed with her books, her writing. I have one left. I've read all her books. I have just for the summer left, and I'm reading it this month, and I'm so sad that I have all her books finished. This book is reverse age gap, so she's actually older than him, which I feel like never happens. They're like opposites attract. She's from the city, he's from a small town. They end up meeting one day, her car breaks down, and he like helps her, and then slowly they start like going to each other's like houses, but they lived like hours away, so they could never be together. And there was a little bit in this book where like she was trying to figure stuff out and be like, what do I do? I was like, can you just get your shit together and like be together? But it's another one of my 5-star reads. A book that has your favorite characters. The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I love these characters. This is a 4-book series. It's like a teenage version of Criminal Minds. I have not that I've seen Criminal Minds, that's what people tell me. Basically with these 5 teenagers, and they are recruited by the FBI to help solve cold cases. And they all have different like skills that helps them. So like 2 of them are really good profilers, one's like a human lie detector, one's really good at statistics, one's an emotion reader, or whatever. But it's not in like a magical way, like they have learned these skills from growing up. And there's 4 different books, so kind of every book kind of follows a different character in the friend group. And like kind of the story revolves around them and why they know the skills that they know. Sloan was my favourite character, in case you're wondering. I love them. The found family aspect is a love triangle in this one as well. It's the same author that The Inheritance Games is, and there's also love triangle in that one. But obsessed with this series. I could read 100 books of these characters. Like, I love them so much. I read the series so fast. A Book You Wish You Could Live In. Lover, designed by Lauren Asher. I am obsessed with this book. This is one of my new favorite books. The Final Offer used to be. The Final Offer is also set in the same place as this book, but Final Offer used to be my favorite Lauren Asher book, and this one has overtaken the next one's coming out in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited. This follows Dahlia and Julian, and they have always known each other growing up, but they kind of like didn't like each other. They had a bit of like a rivalry, I guess. Dahlia comes back to the small town, and her and Julian end up working on a house together. That's kind of the whole storyline of this book. There's obviously more to it, but it's quite long for a romance book, but I wish it was longer. Like, I was obsessed with banter, everything. This book was great. I loved Small Town. Like, I would just live here. They all live in mansions too, so like, what is there to not like? A Book You Thought You'd Hate but End Up Loving. This one was a shock to me that I love this book. I gave this book 4 stars, and that is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Obviously, like I said, I hated When in the Realm. Like, I gave it like a 2 stars. This one was just, this is about the main girl in the first book, her bodyguard, and then the main guy is one of his sisters. I said earlier I didn't like the sisters, but like this one was different. Like, the sisters weren't too prevalent in the story. This one is about Annie, and she is really bad at going on dates, talking to guys. She's very awkward, says the wrong things. So what's his name? Will basically takes her on dates to like teach her how to go on dates, and it was so good, so cute. It's short. I read it so quickly. This is my favorite Sarah Adams book. I'm also reading the rule book, and I'm only 50 pages into that one, but we'll see. But this one right now is my favorite Sarah Adams book. I loved it. A book that made you cry. I have quite a few books that made me cry. I feel like I cry at the end of every book because I love some of the characters in some books. Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. I remember just crying at the end of this book, and I'm not going to say why I cried because it was the end of the book and that would just completely spoil it, but I think it was because Lucian and Stone, the first 2 books, like, you got little crumbs of them and they hate each other. As childhood friends to lovers, they literally hate each other first, but they don't actually hate each other, but you know what I mean. I think it's because the first 2 books in the series you get like little crumbs of Lucian and Snow, and then this book being all about them. I will say this is supposed to be a romance book about Lucian and Snow, and there's always like a side plot of like mystery in all Lucy Score's books. I've only read 3, but there's always like a side plot of mystery, and I think the mystery in this book definitely overtook the romance, and the romance took back seat. But I love Lucian and Snow, and I did cry at the end of this. I think I properly cried. And the last book is a book you wish you could read again for the first time, and that is Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. This is another one of my 5-star reads. I'm so obsessed with this book. This is another book that deserves way more hype than it gets. This is about Matt and Grace, and they lived, their dorm rooms were next to each other in college, and they became best friends. She showed them around. One of them is a musician and likes music, and something happens. They don't speak for years. I think it's like 15 years or something later. 12 years, 15, I don't actually know. One day Matt is on like the undergrounds, and he sees her like in the subway or whatever. Is that what they're called? I don't know. In the subway, and he sees her, she sees him, and then he literally spends so long trying to find her, and then they end up finding each other, whatever. I like how the story was told in the way that you got a lot of the past. It wasn't like, it didn't have the back and forth, past, present, past, present. You kind of got the past in like a big chunk, and then you got the present. You got present, and then a lot of the past, and then present again. Read this one if you haven't. And that's it. I'm out of breath. This is my 4th video I'm filming this week. This is my 3rd one, like sit down video. I'm doing a reading vlog, and I've talked so much, I feel like I'm going to lose my voice box. Anyway, that's it. Go read all these books. Let me know if you've read them. If you haven't read them, I don't know, but I will see you very, very soon in the next one. Bye.